anybody out there yet? Here we go. Welcome to John Ferrian Live, episode 129. We are here. We've almost made 130 episodes. Next week we'll have 130 episodes. Man, it's been a run. Holy smokes. We are here in August. It is now August 2nd, 2020. In case you're going to watch this in the future, guess what? COVID's still going on. Presidential elections are still going on. The world is still chaos in many parts of the world. But one thing that happens consistently every week and is positive in your inbox as you're scrolling through Facebook is this show, John Ferrian Live. We are here to talk snowmobiling, snowmobile education, snowmobile safety. We are talking about positive growth of this sport and keeping you guys all safe out there in the backcountry and having a blast. And so don't forget, I see David Wagner is here. I see Atia Smith is here. Thank you guys. You guys know the routine. Bill Yeager is here watching. Let us know where you're watching from, guys, as we love knowing where you're watching from and what maybe you did this weekend. Drop it in the comments, too, if you went. I'll tell you what I did quick. I went kayaking. We went driving up on top of the mountain. We sat there and enjoyed some views. Went and hung out at a campfire with some friends. Today we went out and did a little water skiing this morning. We've had another Live Large weekend. You guys know what Live Large is all about. It's living life to the fullest, making the most of every day. And bottom line, we're making a difference in other people's lives as we're doing that, right? We're trying to be a positive role model here in the sled community for all of you guys. We're bringing in incredible guests. This week is no different. So I'm going to talk you guys through a few different things here quick. Is the Share and Win contest. Every week we have one of two sponsors that give away some awesome prizes every week. Fly Racing is on the off weeks, and then the other weeks we have is Woody's Racing. Woody's Racing, if you didn't know, is a snow cross racing team. They race out of Minnesota. They've got roots also in Wyoming, and it's a fantastic team. It's a family-owned team that's partnered up with Arctic Cat Racing, and they are doing an incredible job of, again, making a difference in their sled community, and they want all of you guys to know how much they appreciate you checking in and watching the show and sharing out this incredible content that you get to see here every single week. So just for sharing, for following them on Facebook, following them on Instagram, you're going to get in to win a shirt from Woody's Racing. So we're going to go ahead and bring up our guests here, Will and Matt, in just a second. So I'll drop the little screen here in 3, 2, and 1. How's it going, gentlemen?
What's up, John?
You guys having a Live Large weekend? How's your weekend?
Pretty good.
Living large, working a lot.
Yeah. So, Will, tell us what you did this weekend. You said you had to work a little bit. Did somebody putting you to the grindstone, or what's going on?
Yeah, so I'm a fly fishing guide out of Jackson, Wyoming in the summertime. So,
awesome.
July and August are our two busiest months for sure. I think I did 28 full days in July. So that trend continues, I guess, right through August till bow season starts for elk.
There you go. And then do you guide that as well, or is that just for fun for you?
That's for fun. That's for peace of mind.
Awesome. And so, Matt, how about you? How did you spend your weekend this weekend? Did you have to work also, or did you have a little fun?
Yeah, so I had to work on a Saturday yesterday. Renting out a bunch of Polaris Razor side-by-sides for everybody to go explore the countryside around here. It's been a pretty good summer for getting out into the backcountry and the wilderness on your own. So pretty busy doing that, but I was able to get on the lake a little bit earlier today and do some wake surfing. So
boom,
cooled down a little bit today. Yeah.
Yeah, so believe it or not, I've got a good friend of mine who I snowmobile with here in the local area. Is Alex Cropley is his name, and I hang out with him pretty regularly. But this morning, or actually late yesterday, he invited my wife and I out to go out for water skiing and coffee this morning. And so I sold my boat when I lived in Minnesota before I moved out to Washington, and I honestly haven't even water skied since then. It was probably 2012, 2011 probably, since the last time I threw on a pair of water skis to give it a shot. And guess what? I didn't completely suck. I only sort of sucked.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cool. Well, that's one thing we all have in common is everybody who either watches the show or is on the show as a guest is everybody's got something that they're passionate about, right? And it's, summertime, it could be a variety of things, but in the wintertime, we all have this very consistent quality of ourselves. We call ourselves snowmobilers, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny how, no matter what, summer month it is, we're still talking about snowmobiles and the new gear's starting to come out, and I'm sure everybody's picking out what they're going to wear this winter and things like that. It never ends, even when the snow's temporarily gone for a few months.
Nope, exactly. So I just want to let the folks who are watching here know, just say thank you guys for tuning in and jumping in here. And, again, if you haven't shared the show out, just, you can get in with Woody's Racing t-shirt is up for grabs this week. But we're going to have a great episode tonight. We're going to talk about a number of things tonight. We're going to get to know these two gentlemen here a little bit. They're both part of what's called the Mountain Riding Lab in Jackson, Wyoming. We're going to go through that. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about what's the difference between a awareness class, a level 1 class, maybe a companion rescue class. We're going to walk you guys through that. We're going to talk through a little bit about how the origins of this Live Large University project came to be and the role that Matt and Will are playing in that, as well as kind of helping me get this kicked off. We're going to talk through all of those awesome things tonight for the show, and I'm really excited to do that and have you guys on. So we're going to jump into this here formally in a minute, but I just want to say, Will and Matt, both of you guys, thank you so much for being here tonight. So,
Yeah, thanks for having us, John.
Yeah,
cool,
for sure.
Cool. So I love to just go in order. I'm kind of a left to right kind of guy, and Will, you're on my left, so I'm going to start with you. But let's just get to know you guys a little bit first. Will, just give us a quick breakdown of, who is Will Mook, right? Did he grow up in Wyoming? Did he grow up in Jacksonville, Florida? Who knows? I don't know. But why don't you let us get to know you a little bit? If you have family, if you have a day job, a little bit of that, and maybe we'll then go into the Mountain Riding Lab stuff afterwards once we get Matt introduced.
Yeah, for sure. I did not grow up in Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
I've been a North kid my whole life. I grew up in, farming oysters. My dad's owned an oyster farm on the coast of Maine for the last 35, 40 years.
That's awesome.
And so for a long time through high school, I was logging days for a captain's license and was planning on taking over my dad's oyster farm, and got a job right out of college. My dad was kind of like, get out of Maine, just go see the country a little bit. Like, you got to break the bubble a little bit. And so I got a job snowmobile guiding out at Togedy, Togedy Mountain Lodge, and just never left. Fell in love with the mountains. I grew up skiing my whole life, from the age of 2 to through college, and riding buddy sleds back east, but the whole trail riding thing just never really did it for me. I never really got that addiction to snowmobiling when I was back east. And then as soon as I got on a mountain sled, it was like game over. I don't ski at all anymore, really.
Yeah, so you're one of those guys that we hear about all the time, and that I've personally witnessed, who decides to start snowmobiling so they can do some more extreme backcountry skiing, and then realize very quickly that, oh my gosh, why am I wasting my time backcountry skiing when I can be snowmobiling all of the time, right?
I actually didn't even go through that phase. The first day I was on snowmobile, I was like, I don't ever need to bring skis in the backcountry ever.
That's awesome.
This is more. I guided for Togedy Mountain Lodge for about 7 years, I want to say.
Okay.
Lived in Jackson, Wyoming for about 6 years, and then about 2 years ago, bought a house over here in Victor, Idaho. So I'm an Idaho resident now, and my wife and I live over here. We got 2 black labs. When I'm not fly fish guiding during the day, I'm usually up in the Big Hole Mountains riding my dirt bike. So that's kind of how I fuel my 2-stroke addiction
there you go.
through the summertime.
Very cool, very cool. So going into this interview, I'll just tell you, I've spent a little bit more time with Matt on the phone than I did with Will. But Matt, you now have to follow that intro, right? Like, we all know now how cool of a dude Will is, and I'm sure two of you guys working together all the time are not competitive at all. And so now it's your turn to showcase what Matt Schabaum is all about.
Yeah, well, what's going on, everybody? I'm originally from the Northeast as well, upstate New York.
Nice.
Got into snowmobiling on the flatland back there as a teenager. Kind of thought it was the coolest thing ever, just because you could get out of the house and go out in the woods, and no one was out there to bother you, and your parents weren't around, and you could go hang out with your buddies. And so it was just kind of a cool sense of freedom. And then, the flat ground started to get a little boring. So, just like Will, and I'm sure a lot of people, we started looking west. And I actually started guiding down in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, back in 2008, 2009.
Okay.
Kind of the same thing. It was like, oh, I'll try this out for a year or two and then go back east and get a real job or something, and stayed. And then, started looking up here in Wyoming, like where's the next best place I can guide. And yeah, met Will at Togety Mountain Lodge our first year when we started riding here in Wyoming. And yeah, same kind of thing. Like, mountain riding just did it for me. I'd always loved winter and stuff. I skied and snowboarded a little bit, but there was definitely not that crossover period. It was, my whole point of moving out west was to snowmobile.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And, it's very different, but I can tell you, though, that passion for mountain snowmobiling I got hooked on, too, back in 2007 was my first ride ever to Cook City, Montana, and I lived in Minnesota at the time. I was a flatlander, rode there all the time, came out, and after one trip, I was completely hooked. And so then as my career started to evolve and I saw an opportunity to move out here to Seattle, knowing that there was some mountain riding up here in the Cascade Mountains, I was like, okay, let's go for the big job. Let's get and I get to go snowmobiling every weekend. Sign me up, right? So,
yeah, it's kind of amazing how somebody would, change their whole life around snowmobiling in a particular area, but
yeah,
seems to be pretty common in our sport.
yeah, it does, it does, it does. So, well, thank you guys for the initial intro. And what I want to do next is just let everybody know, kind of, Matt, how you and I first got connected. It was a pretty amazing story from my perspective because it really became the first domino in a whole series of dominoes that fell together for me in our relationship, as well as the relationship of everybody who got involved in this Live Large University program that we started. And so bear with me for a minute while I kind of walk everybody through this journey. My memory is it was a episode with Sean Donahoe, who was in a avalanche on April 7th of 2020 of this year. And I want to say it was give or take about 2 to 3 weeks after his accident that I had him on the episode and on the show. And it was at the point where I brought him on. We had a really powerful episode with him. It was my #2 most viewed show ever. Literally, it was a great episode. We, everybody learned a lot on there. You happened to catch that episode, Matt. And on that episode, I was teeing up this idea and this concept of me needing to get some shirts together, it'd be Live Large or Live Large. We hadn't even conceived this whole concept of Live Large University yet and everything else yet. It was still kind of to be determined in the future. But as I teed that up and start throwing out that, hey, I'm looking for partners, anybody who wants to partner with me on trying to help provide these scholarships and these different programs and opportunities for folks. And after that show is when you reached out to me and said, hey, John, I saw the show. I want you to know that you got an awesome thing going and, would love to be part of it. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that was my memory of our initial engagement. Is there anything that, from your point of view, you want to add to that?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. That was a pretty powerful episode, and it was just, seeing him tell his story about, his avalanche, and then kind of looking back and, trying to get some more education and figure out what went wrong and kind of start to learn what was out there. That's what hit home for us. And all people can always use help getting into an avalanche course, whether it's financially or just knowing the right place to look. So,
yeah,
I just wanted to make sure that we did all we could for people like him to find out where to go. And
yeah. Well, and it's amazing because Sean, anybody who hasn't seen it, I don't remember the exact episode number, but it was, again, in late April. If you go back, and you can actually go to, it's tagged in this episode, or it will be here at the end of the show, is John Ferrian Live. If you just search on Facebook, right in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you can see it, John Ferrian Live. Just search that engine there, and you'll see every single episode that I've ever done is in chronological order with nothing else in there other than just the shows on that Facebook page. And then there's also a YouTube channel that not a lot of people are aware of yet, but I started that probably close to a year ago also, and I've been cataloging a lot of the shows on there as well. It's called Live Large Universe. If you go to YouTube and type in Live Large Universe or just my name, you'll see that pop up in that channel, and feel free to subscribe and follow along there. Every time we're done with a live episode here on Facebook, it gets shot over to YouTube and uploaded there. And so this whole concept just kind of came together. And, in our initial conversation, or maybe it was the second conversation, Matt, you had made an incredible suggestion. In hindsight, it was the perfect kind of pinnacle for pulling this whole program together, which is, you recommended I get a hold of Aerie, right? Why don't you kind of tell your version of that story and what you recommended?
Yeah, totally. So, I think we were brainstorming back and forth on text or whatever, and we had already, we work very closely with Aerie. We're an Aerie provider, and that's who we believe in. And we talk with them a lot because they're always trying to enhance their motorized education program. And we've talked about other scholarships and ideas to help them as an organization. And it wasn't a couple weeks later that I was talking to you, and it just kind of clicked in my head. And I think you had mentioned that a couple people at Aerie.
Yep.
So I was like, just give them a call and tell them your idea. And I think that'll get the ball rolling.
Yeah, and it absolutely did. And so I got a hold of Vicki Hormuth at Aerie. She's the new executive director that's been there probably 8 or 9, 10 months now, approximately. And, she loved the idea right off the bat. And, it was just this snowball effect of these brainstorms. And, that's one thing that I'll tell everybody is, this show, the ideas, all of it, like I'm part of it, but it's not about me. It's, the show's not about me. It's about these guys tonight. Tonight, we're going to tell a little bit of the story of how this all came to be and the program. But the reality is like all of this is about the community and what we can do together. And so by pulling Aerie in, we actually got them involved, and we were able to set this whole program up as a nonprofit organization now. And all the merchandise that you can see, like I'm just going to tip the screen down a little bit so people can see it if they haven't before. Oop, sorry. I just hit my cord, sorry. Get my elbow there. But it's Live Large University, established 2020. And there's a new version of this shirt that just got set up here. We're going to put this up in a minute, but where it says Education Department right here, it actually now has the logo that's on your shirt, Matt, it says Aerie on there. And I'm going to pull that up and show it to you here on the website. So as I shift over, I'm going to change our source here from our cameras over to the screen share. And let's see if that works. So there we go. So I'm going to go into the Live Large website. So for anybody who's never been on here yet, you can go, let me minimize this. And so we can go to the John Ferrian Live Large website, and it's livelarge itemorder.com. And as you can see here, let me minimize some stuff on my screen so it's easier for me to see what's going on. There we go. So I've got the Live Large here, and it just kind of gives you kind of the breakdown of what the Live Large program's about, what we're here, what we're talking about, what we're focused on. It talks about all the partners that are a part of the program. And one of the first people who I partnered with, even before I got a hold of Matt here, was Brian Lundstedt from Tyler's Backcountry Awareness. And you can see there's a link here. If you hover over the red text, there's a link where everybody can see, and you can click in and go to Brian's website. The next one is from Matt and Will here. It's the Mountain Riding Lab. You guys were kind of my number 2 partner that I got in touch with. And then once I got a hold of Aerie and started having the conversation, I identified very quickly who all of the providers were. So there's 4 existing current Aerie providers around the country, and we got Tyler's Backcountry Awareness is in Colorado, the Mountain Riding Lab is in Jackson, Wyoming, and we have Ride Rasmussen Style, which is based out of the West Yellowstone area. And then of course we have Mountain Skills. If anybody doesn't know that, that's Matt Enns. You guys are probably familiar with him. He's out of Colorado as well, and all of these are trained and certified Aerie providers. These guys are going to be the ones who across the country are going to be able to take the Aerie curriculum. They're partnering with them. And all of these guys, amongst others, but at least in the current state, the list that's here, everybody on that list was very instrumental in providing Aerie with insights around the snowmobile community of what snowmobilers need in avalanche education training, right? And so, Matt, why don't you chat about that just for a minute? We won't go deep yet on that, but just high level, kind of talk about how everybody in the snowmobile community came together with Aerie to build kind of the initial foundation of the motorized curriculum. Maybe like a 3-minute version of that, if you would.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd say probably 5 to 10 years back, in time now, these organizations like Aerie started to realize that snowmobile education is going to be different than a ski class or any non-motorized avalanche class. And rather than kind of continue with the current model where, snowmobilers might just hop on skis and go take a course or anything like that. Some people at ARI, I think Brian Lundstedt was pretty instrumental in kind of putting their heads together to figure out, okay, we need to basically build a whole new curriculum that's catered to the way that snowmobilers travel in the backcountry. And I think that was the first great thing that ARI did, was realize that it had to be built from the ground up. And to help build that, they've brought in snowmobilers from around the country and the world, tried to, build instructors and providers and really keep honing in this curriculum with feedback from everybody that uses it. And it's been getting dialed in more and more over the last, 5 to 6 years since it even was unveiled. And it's really built by snowmobilers for snowmobilers. And that's one thing we like to say at the Mountain Riding Lab, as a provider, is like, we are educators, but we're also riders. We're doing this for riders by riders. And I think that kind of rings through with ARI too, the way that this curriculum's built. Obviously, they make sure that everything, matches up with all the international standards and the, best practices and the latest information and everything that's coming from around the world, but it's kind of put through a snowmobile lens. So it kind of started with some pro riders years ago, that it was kind of an invite only thing to this curriculum test, where they were sort of put through the course and then asked for feedback, and that got the ball rolling. We've had all kinds of workshops and conference calls over the years, and to really dial in this curriculum for snowmobilers.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's a critical piece that we want to make sure everybody understands, is the fact that the ARI curriculum that's put out for motorized users is an ARI curriculum that was a key partnership between legitimately pro-level riders like yourselves and Brett Rasmussen, Matt Enns. Everybody was involved in this, and they, ARI came to you guys and said, hey, what do you need? And then ultimately you told ARI what they needed, and then you partnered with them on making sure that, the style of the curriculum and the language that's being used in the curriculum, maybe the images that's being built, all that kind of stuff in the slides and stuff, are relevant to the snowmobile community, which is pretty cool. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and so I'm just kind of, as you were talking there, everybody was able to kind of see me scrolling through the website, and there's a few different things on the website I just want to point out, and then we'll pop up and have you guys and myself come up kind of big again too. But again, you can go to this website, and there's a lot of new changes that I've made just in the last week here in partnership with my buddy Craig Johnson out of Minnesota, who him and his brother are the ones who own the t-shirt shop. It's Great Plains Graphics out of Brainerd, Minnesota. Craig is an old high school friend of mine, and actually, believe it or not, his girlfriend, or I'm sorry, his fiance is my wife's first cousin. So it's been interesting to kind of all these key partners and people who've come out of the woodwork to want to help us do the right thing for the community. It's been a really neat experience. But we have the BRAP shirts again. Now you can see the one that I'm wearing and the one that was in there. They now say ARI on them, and it's Avalanche. What is it? American Institute for Avalanche Research and Education is what ARI stands for. And then we have the Cal Taylor shirts on here that are from Cal in Utah. And then the other one is cool. So this is something that just changed here. I want to make sure I point out to everybody is that we had in the month of July these Live Large, Where the Journey Begins shirts that were available in kind of a red, white, and blue look to them. And what we've done now, since July is pretty much over and we've moved on to August, is we went back to kind of what the original color is, and it's a gray and blue and white combination. It's a really beautiful logo. Jessica Carter, who does all of this from Extreme Realities, does an incredible job of developing all of this and getting it ready. And the other thing you guys will notice on here too is that there are so many more colors available than there ever was before also. So each of these shirt designs, many of them have as many as, over 20 colors. Some are 24 colors, 22 colors. There's hoodies in here now. We still have the old long sleeve tee with the red, white, and blue look to it. But then guess what, guys? We finally did it down in the bottom. This is brand new. Nobody saw this until I think just this week. Is we have the Live Large John Ferrian Live logo, the new logo for hats. So let me just click on that and bring it up for everybody. And thank you, Matt and Will, for your patience. But this is cool because a lot of people have been waiting for hats to show up. And so we've got black hats and we have gray hats. And so they're two different styles and looks. But the you can see the logo itself. You can either have the logo centered on the hat. You can request to have it centered, or you can have it offset to one side. And the JFL, the way this logo is designed is, JFL obviously stands for John Ferrian Live. We did the F in kind of a shape of F for Facebook. There's a red cross in the middle of the logo symbolizing the safety part of what we do every week. And then, of course, hashtag live large, which we've told everybody over and over again what that means. But a lot of cool things that are on here now. You can get hats and shipping. And we do have, now U.S. and international shipping rates for each of these as well, where it used to be all blended together. But we've discovered is that we're actually losing money on some of the orders that are going, outside of the United States. And so we've had to adjust pricing on that. So just a heads up for any of my Canadian friends, or we've just recently shipped some stuff over to Finland. But a lot of really, really cool stuff on there. So there's let's see if I can find here. Yep. So I think I'm going to go back now to the show here. Got to get back to, there it is. Let me find that. And I've got to go back and go to my source and get you guys back up here. Let's see if I can populate you guys. All right, everybody's back to full size. The website has dropped down. Appreciate your patience there, but it's really neat to just kind of, because that's kind of one of the outcomes is, and all the money that goes in there, everything that everybody buys there, any profits that come out of that, go directly to ARI. That's the cool part is this program that, Matt, you and I and Will, we kind of brainstormed this a little bit. And as we pulled this together, now all of the money goes directly from the t-shirt printer, the hat printer, directly to ARI to a scholarship program. And the cool part is as we raise money for these scholarships, as there's more and more money available, we've partnered with the 4 providers, including you guys, who are going to be where these classes are going to be able to be given away from, right? So as we have people apply for these, people will be able to then say, hey, I want to take a class in Jackson with you guys, or if they want to go to Colorado. The nice part is we've got different options, right? People can go to different states, and we have classes available. And then we're also focused on professional education. And so, Will, are you able to speak to kind of what ARI does for professional educators? Is that something you can tackle for us?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the strong points of ARI is that they give people who want to become instructors a framework and a series of courses that they then need to take to become educators. So basically that means going through the recreational curriculum progression, and then at some point you can make a split into what they call the professional track, where you then do like your professional 1 and your professional 2. And so they lay that out there, then they give you the resources so that as you're trying to develop professionally as an educator, you have mentors and people like that to fall back on, so that they really train a high quality instructor.
Yeah. Well, and what I've seen firsthand, and I'm gonna kind of facetiously, kind of smart alecky put you guys on the spot, but everybody that I know who is a legitimate avalanche educator is doing it out of passion. They're not doing it to get rich, right? Let's just be honest. Probably both of you guys, you could make a whole lot more money doing something else other than avalanche education throughout the winter. But it's a passion of you guys, is that you guys really know is important work. It's meaningful to you, and you're making a difference out there. Is what's motivating you guys. Is that a pretty accurate statement?
Yeah. If you meet a rich avalanche instructor, let me know.
Exactly, right? And so that's kind of the point of my next comment, which is that some of the funds that are going to go from this Live Large University program are going to go to help subsidize some of that avalanche education for the pro level folks as well, to make sure that as a community, this is really important, that as a community, we have enough providers and trainers and educators in the motorized community to adequately train all these people who are trying to get motivated to go get trained, right? Because across the country right now, it's pretty consistent that there's a shortage of especially motorized education trainers out there. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, we've done a pretty good job over the last 10 years of getting the word out to the recreational community and develop the opportunities for them to come take a course. And now there's still a lot of work to do there. I don't think that's ever going to end, but developing instructors and getting this core group of professionals that are snowmobilers is kind of our next task too. Just to kind of put it in perspective, Will and I were just in one of the first ever motorized specific Pro 2 this past winter. So we were kind of along with Brian and a couple other guys, kind of the first graduates of a Pro 2 level education that was actually strictly for snowmobilers. So the Pro track has a long way to go too, and without instructors, we won't be able to teach any more courses. There's only a handful of us, pretty much all the providers that are working with you, kind of the ARI team. And then, there are more instructors growing around the country, but we are certainly going to need a lot more. So if anyone out there is thinking this stuff sounds pretty interesting and they're looking at getting in for their own reasons, just to be safe in the backcountry, but think that they might be interested in becoming an instructor one day, that's totally available. And, these scholarships could help them out too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I don't know if you guys will remember the name David Knapp or not. It's Knapp.
Yeah.
Do you guys know that name? So David is a regular watcher of the show, and he's actually watching tonight. And I'm going to read a comment that he made here because it's directly related to his experience at your guys' the mountain riding lab, right? So I'm going to read it verbatim. It says, I had the opportunity to start out my 19 Wyoming trip by taking my level 1 with Will and Matt at the mountain riding lab. What a great 3-day experience and opportunity for AVI education awareness. I'd highly recommend riders start with their season or Western trip on an ARI avalanche training class. We also had the opportunity to take a 1-day on the snow AVI awareness class with Tyler's Backcountry Awareness through the Snowy Mountain Snowmobile Club out of Albany Lodge, Wyoming. Again, great experience, and Brian brought so much real-world experience to the day on the snow. Thank you, gentlemen, for bringing awareness to the Eastern Flatlanders, right? So he's from New York, for anybody who doesn't know David. I've interacted with him for a couple of years now as I've done this show, and he's a big fan and a big proponent of getting his local riders educated and safe, and it's really awesome to know that guys like you have helped him with his journey. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember when he contacted us and started telling us about his trip that he was planning, and it sounds like he does that, almost every year, or makes a snowmobile trip for an extended period of time out west. He did it perfect by coming out, starting with a level 1, and then going on to ride, for a couple more weeks. I think after he was here, he went down to Alpine, and then I think he was going up to British Columbia. And, he's not the only one that comes from the Midwest or the East Coast and makes a extended winter snowmobiling trip out of it. And what better way to start your mountain trip than with a level 1 avalanche class? I mean, I think you couldn't do any better there.
Yeah, and especially because, speaking from personal experience as well as a lot of folks that I know, they ride with typically a very consistent group of riders every single year. It's the same group of maybe 5 to 6 guys. They might, people in general, right? It could be husband-wife combos, could be a ladies' ride, could be all kinds of different things. But the core group is probably 80% the same every year, and then they rotate maybe different friends in and out each year. And so it's amazing to be able to do an avalanche training class with the group that you ride with all the time. It really opens up your eyes, and everybody at the end of the first, level 1 class, they're going to go, can you guys believe all the stupid mistakes we've been making the last 6 years we've been riding in the mountains? Like, speaking for myself, that's exactly what my experience was after I took my first level 1. So,
Bliss.
Nope, exactly. You kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm lucky I got through that alive, right? So, so the next thing I'd like to talk about, guys, is kind of how did the mountain riding lab come to be? Tell us a little bit about maybe how the two of you guys obviously met through Togety Mountain Lodge, but let's talk about kind of the initial early conversations of you guys realizing that you wanted to go tackle this, and then maybe as you talk through that, tell us where the idea for the name came from for the mountain riding lab. I actually love it. It's a pretty cool name. It catches your attention. So just curious where the origins of it came out. And so maybe Will, you want to take a shot at it first, and then I'll turn it over to Matt.
Yeah. The name was many months of debate. But yeah, Matt and I started guiding together. We met at Togety. We both lived in Jackson, and for those who don't know, it's about an hour drive from Jackson to Togety. And with guide wages, it helps with your take home every day if you carpool. So Matt and I used to buy these like total junker Audis that had all-wheel drive. I think our budget was like $800 a car. Anyway, we would ride for 100 days a season up to the lodge together, and we both just kept talking about how we can become better snowmobile guides. And a lot of that was we need to get some formal avalanche education. Like I had taken a level 1 on skis when I was in college, so I had like a kind of an idea of what was going on avalanche wise, but I would not say to the level that I needed to be the best guide possible. Um, and so I just kind of like you're saying, no, I got lucky a few times, and I had near misses while on the clock.
Yeah.
Uh, and it just a few eye openers. And so we started kind of looking into, all right, what is it going to take for us to take courses? And then we realized that like there really weren't courses available to snowmobilers, and I didn't want to go pay a bunch of money to go through a ski course again and then try to translate it to how I actually look at the mountains. Um, so we kind of sought out one of our mentors who had been an avalanche educator for us, as well as a medical trainer for some of our other guiding certs. And he kind of put us in touch with this guy, Travis Feist, out of California, who is very involved in, he wrote basically the first version of the ARI curriculum. And he helped organize that very first kind of debut of the curriculum to the pro riders in Island Park 8 years ago, something like that. And so we got in touch with him, and he basically walked us through what we needed to do to become instructors. And so, we kind of realized that guiding for a full-time career was really hard on the body, and we both liked the educational pieces of being a guide, whether that was like riding skills or pointing out snowpack stuff that we did know. And so I think Matt and I both kind of had a draw to become instructors as opposed to full-time guides. So it was in a $800 Audi that the idea for the mountain riding lab came together, and then a few old fashions at one of the local bars, drawing logos on a bar napkin, and the typical start your own business play by play.
Absolutely.
And I think the mountain riding lab, the mountain riding is what we do.
Yep.
And we kept thinking about words like institute and some other less fun courses, and we were kind of looking back to our formal public school education. We'd always look forward to lab because that's when you actually got to go out and like
Yeah.
learn in the field and like hands on. And we both, as we like were becoming instructors, felt that was the most important part of learning in an avalanche course is when you're actually out there in the field with your hands in the snow.
Yeah.
And actually living and breathing what we're teaching here. And so, I think after many nights of debating, I think we just finally came up with the mountain riding lab. It's a lab where there is a classroom component, but
Yeah.
we focus the field sessions. So
Yeah, lab indicates that you're going to go out and actually do hands-on, testing, right, or skills training or whatever, right? It's not just reading a book, all as like you might think. So, and you guys will both be interested in knowing too that through the comments here, we've got at least 2 people who've said that they're interested in possibly becoming an avalanche educator, and Jessica Carter, who actually is Extreme Realities, who does our shirt logos. I know she's got some expressed interest in that, and also Kevin Carell out of California. He's originally, I think, from the Midwest. I think it's Michigan, if I remember right, and he's moved out to California, gotten into riding. He's starting up his own Facebook page that he's getting everybody excited about. I'll probably butcher the name of it, but I think it's like Skidoo Factory Turbo Sleds Facebook page. But he's passionate, he's all into, just like Jessica, and I would encourage both of them to send you guys some private messages and get some insights on what it takes to get into avalanche education training, to become an instructor. So
Yeah, totally. That's awesome.
Cool. So Matt, I'm actually going to turn this over to you next. I'm going to give you a quick opportunity. I think Will did a good job of explaining kind of the origins of the company and how it came to be, but is there any part of that you want to kind of add into? Otherwise, I'm going to have you go through the different levels of avalanche training and what it means. So.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, yeah, like Will said, it was really like if we as guides couldn't find this education, then all the recreational riders and all our buddies and everybody that is riding in the mountains probably isn't finding it either. So it was, definitely not just for selfish reasons. We wanted to provide that because we saw a need for it. But yeah, so, as you start looking into the different avalanche courses and, what this is all about, if you're kind of new to it, it kind of helps to understand the difference between the courses and think about your avalanche education kind of as a progression. You kind of start small and then you go deeper and deeper and you learn more and more. And a lot of snowmobilers probably are pretty familiar with an awareness class.
Yeah.
And awareness is just that. It's awareness. It's trying to learn what you don't know. When you walk out of an awareness class, and people who've probably been to one, are probably familiar. It's at dealerships or, a speaking event or something like that. It might be a 3-hour evening session, maybe a field component. Some awareness classes might meet in the evening and then go out the next day and do some beacon drills and some stuff like that. But it's really just you're kind of just scratching the surface. And when you leave an awareness class, you should start looking where to go next. And really get into a formal multi-day on-snow course. And the place to start with that is either with a standalone avalanche rescue course, which is just a 1-day, 8-hour course. And that's focused on your avalanche rescue skills. So using the beacon, shovel, probe, and all the different skills that it takes to perform an effective companion rescue if someone was buried. So I'm sure a lot of people listening and riding have that gear. The question is, do you really know how to use it? So really getting dialed in on just that stuff is what the focus of the avalanche rescue course is, just a 1-day course. And then the other starting point is the level 1. And we do a little bit of rescue in a level 1. And then you kind of dive more into what Ari calls decision making in avalanche terrain. So that's where you start to learn how to assess your risk, understand an avalanche bulletin, realize what you're dealing with out there, all the variables, whether it's the avalanche danger, people in your group, the weather conditions, putting all that together and coming up with a good plan based on the risk that you're facing. And the main risk that we talk about, obviously, is avalanche risk. And that's where you really learn about what makes an avalanche. You start to dive into some of the snowpack structure and the science of it to learn how different weather conditions and snow patterns might make something more dangerous or less dangerous. So that's really like the bread and butter of the beginning to your formal avalanche education. And then from a level 1, you can move up to a level 2. And a level 2 is basically building on that level 1, but teaching you how to function with less resources. So maybe it's riding in an area that doesn't have an avalanche forecast that you can look up each morning and see what you're dealing with. So you might have to do more of that research on your own by digging snow pits and making observations and things like that. So the less resources you have to learn about what you're facing each day, the higher education you might need. And then after a level 2, that's where, if you're going to keep pursuing your avalanche education, you might go into those professional courses. And that's kind of a whole nother topic. But it's really important to kind of understand that progression. Awareness, level 1, avalanche rescue, you can take those in either order.
Yeah.
But to move on to a level 2, you have to take the rescue and the level 1 as a prerequisite to move up. So that really gives you the foundation, and then you can go from there.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Will, anything you want to add to that? Any maybe thing you want to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big difference between like a lot of recreational users think that avalanche education is just learning how to use a beacon shovel probe. But it's important to keep in mind that if you're using that stuff, that's plan B. You already messed up. We got to know how to use it because it statistically works. If we're good with our tools and we make a mistake and somebody's buried, we can get somebody out alive if we have the right stuff and know how to use it. The level 1's plan A. That's like we cover a little bit of companion rescue, like Matt was saying, but it's the rest of the course is really focused on avoidance of ever triggering and being caught in an avalanche. So just something.
Yeah, and so just something I'll add to what both of you have talked about so far, and I share this pretty consistently anytime I have an opportunity to in like an avalanche training awareness class. That thing, you guys are familiar. I'm with the Northwest Avalanche Center. I'm the current vice president of the Avalanche Center, and so I attend a lot of local awareness classes in the past years. And what I find is what I'm about to share with people resonates pretty well because they're usually everybody's at some point in their avalanche education journey. And here's what I experienced. Right, is the first couple of times I went from the Midwest and went out mountain riding, I was super stoked to get out there and ride. It was deep powder. It was fun with friends. We kind of maybe sort of had avalanche safety gear, but I would put us in the category of ignorance was bliss. We didn't know enough to be afraid yet, right? So we were just out having fun. And as time went on, I attended my first ever avalanche awareness class. And almost immediately, within 2 weeks after that awareness class, I went out to Cook City, Montana again. And the riding group that I was with, we started applying some of these skills that we were learning. And yeah, some of it was beacon shovel probe and some training. But what was even more important for me was the idea of identifying avalanche terrain. It seems like in hindsight such a simple task, but understanding that if you're looking at a big pillowy mountainside and it's got a giant wind cornice at the top of it, danger, danger, right, Will Robinson, right? It's like, you're staring at a very potentially high risk area that you're riding in, right? If you got a wind blown area that's all pillowy looking. And so we started making better decisions immediately and immediately saw the results. Like I've shared this with a number of folks, is that I witnessed a friend of mine who previous years would have just gone and ridden a hillside, went over and just looked at it from the bottom and kind of was assessing the hillside based on what he had learned in that awareness class. And it was crazy to think that even in an awareness class, you can learn enough to just say like, okay, I'm not going to just go ride it. Let me go check it out. And as he got to the bottom of it, he decided he wasn't going to ride it. It looked too sketchy. And as he was turning around at the bottom of the hill, he remote triggered the entire hill and the whole thing just slid down behind him. And luckily, he wasn't on the hill and got caught in it. He was down low enough. He was able to hightail it out of there and get out of the way. And I saw it from afar, and he was kind of in a little bit of a blind spot where I couldn't see him for that last few seconds. And so I started rushing over there towards him. As he come closer, I'm like, oh my God, you just scared the crap out of me. But legitimately, the year before, our riding group would have been on that hill. We wouldn't have just been looking at it, right? And so that's part of it. And so then you get to that point where like, okay, you know enough that now you're kind of afraid of avalanches, and you start to get into that paranoia phase of your avalanche education journey, and you become hungry to learn more, right? And you also now are being a little bit like looking over your shoulder to see where Bigfoot with his giant club is going to hit you over the head, aka the avalanche, right? Mm-hmm. And then this is my favorite part, is the part where I finally got to go through a level 1 avalanche class. Was that moment where I finally started to feel like I understood not only avalanche terrain, but understanding the forecast, understanding what causes an avalanche, snow layers, persistent weak layers, kind of what to look for. And the more and more experience I've gotten through going repetitively through awareness classes and even a few times through level 1 classes, what I've discovered about my own riding experience and my own training experience is that I'm now at a point where I can go out into the backcountry and feel fairly confident that I'm making the right decision with all the information I have, because I now have the experience, the training to go out there and just have fun, right? Like, I'll be honest with you, there's days I go out on a high avalanche danger day, but guess what? I don't go anywhere near avalanche terrain, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I just go out down. I go down the trail and look really closely, and we spread out if there's a part of the trail that's a little bit sketchy. But we get everybody spread out, and then we get up to the flat meadows, and we go play in 3-4 foot of powder all day, because that's what a high avalanche danger day is. It's deep epic pow typically around here. Yeah. And so we now just make good decisions, and we choose where we ride because of our training and our education that we've gotten. And it's made riding so much more fun, because that paranoia, that fear factor, I don't want to say goes away completely, but it definitely calms down, and it allows you just to focus on making good decisions and having fun again.
Yeah. Your confidence starts to go up, and you're making a good decision with all the information you have. One thing that I really want people to understand is that, avalanche education is not about closing down the backcountry or telling people that they can't go out and ride on certain days, or something's always dangerous. Every day is different, and you just have to match the terrain to the conditions. Once you progress into that level 1 realm of, your education, you're going to start to get that confidence to know when to go and where to go that day.
Yeah.
And you don't ever have to stay home. You just have to make sure you're making the right decision. And so it starts to open up the backcountry.
Yeah.
People, your initial impression when you learn about scary avalanches is that it's just going to close down the mountains. And you're like, well, I don't know where to go because it seems like everything's dangerous. But, once you really dive into it, it starts to open up the mountains for you. And that's one thing that, until you experience it, you might not believe it. But trust me, when you start to learn more and go through your education, that's a great feeling.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
was say like when you're talking about wind pillows, wind pillows are features, right? Cornices are features. I want to ride those, and so like taking formal avalanche education has taught me like, okay, yeah, I can go hit that one, but I should stay away from that one.
Yeah,
And so I'm
exactly.
not lucky. I'm making good decisions and finding the features that I want to hit
Yeah.
based on my education.
Well, and your risk factor and your risk level of what you're willing to accept for a level of risk now also becomes of not only like, well, maybe or maybe not, what's the likelihood of the avalanche to trigger? Hopefully it's fairly, maybe it's a moderate day, it's yellow, and the risk is relatively low, but it's still there. And you now look at the consequences of like, okay, is it a big flat run out zone where I'm not going to probably get fully buried? Or is it a drainage ditch with cliffs, and am I going to die just going over the cliffs before I even worry about an
And what
avalanche hitting
type
me?
of avalanche is it going to be? Is it going to be a
Exactly.
deep, persistent weak layer? Is it a shallow wind slab? You'll start to understand and put all those pieces together to
Yep.
make your decision.
Yep.
And being able to spot those red flags is something that's really key in a level 1 for people, so that when you can get out there, you can the mountains will keep telling you things. You can be observant and you can say, hey, I just saw this. It means this. We should
Yeah.
probably turn around, or, basically speaking the language of the mountains, kind of, instead of just going out there, ignorance is bliss, like you were saying, and just getting lucky a bunch of times.
Yep, yep. And so there's a couple more comments in the feed here I'm going to read off here. And as I'm doing that, I'm just going to let everybody who's watching still to make sure that you know that if you want to, you can feel free to ask us some more additional questions here. There's some great comments that we'll read out here. But if you have any questions right now, great time to drop those in. And then the last thing we're going to talk about before we cut the show off tonight is kind of the significance of the date of August 31st and what that means to the Live Large University program, the giveaways of the avalanche classes, and all that. I'll be announcing that in a minute. So Will and Matt, think about anything that you might want to cover that we haven't covered yet here, and I'll come back to you. So Bill, or actually let me read it here, Ryan Searle, or Surly, I can't remember if I pronounce his name. You guys know him. He's one of the Boondockers writers, if I remember right,
Yep.
right? And I'm going to read. Yep, I'm going to read his comment. It says, "Love that you guys are getting this information out there. The class was great, and look forward to continuing my education and building our friendship." So that's awesome. And then local guy up here in Washington State, Bill Yeager, he's on search and rescue, and he says, this is great. As a search and rescue person, I wish more people would learn about avalanche education and training and what happens in the mountains with snow." And so, unfortunately, Bill is the guy that when people make bad decisions is the guy that has to go out there and unfortunately sometimes recover the bodies or go for a rescue, fix broken legs, all that kind of stuff. So thank you, Bill.
Awesome. Rescue. Thanks for the comment.
Yep, exactly. So thank you, Bill, for what you do, and thanks for your comment. There we go. I think we're good there. So I'm going to give you guys a quick opportunity to share any final thoughts that you haven't talked about yet before I go into the significance of August 31st and the cutoff that's coming up here in about less than a month. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big takeaways I think people need to understand is that avalanche education is one piece of the puzzle. You can't ever forget that experiential education is really important. There are a lot of guys who have been through our classes who have been riding in the mountains longer than I've been alive, and that is extremely valuable information that they've been developing over decades of riding in the mountains, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be, I think, the best possible backcountry rider that you can be, you need to then couple that with a formal class. That's kind of my takeaway message.
Yeah, no, and I know we talked about that in the prep talk, so I appreciate you bringing that up. And kind of the challenge I give people as well on that same topic is, is your riding skills the same level as your avalanche skills? Like if your avalanche training skills, if you consider yourself a advanced or pro level rider, you better have advanced pro level riding, avalanche classes too, to truly be that pro level. If you think you're pro level, you probably aren't, right? Even if you haven't gotten the training and the education along with it. So great comment, Will. Appreciate bringing that up. Matt, anything else?
Well, I guess I just want people to know where to find avalanche courses. It's never too early to start planning your winter and figure out what class you want to take and where you're going to start. If you've already been to some awarenesses and you're looking for a level 1, pretty shortly here, probably all of us providers will have our schedule online. The great thing about ARI is you can go right to their website and they'll have all the providers there under the motorized section. And we are spread out pretty well around the Mountain West. So, you're bound to find a course pretty close to you, or you could make a fun trip out of it. Come see us or go see Matt down in Colorado or go see Brian. So yeah, just, start thinking about it now. If you don't have all the gear leading into this season, just put that on your list of stuff you're going to buy. If you don't have all your avalanche gear, maybe that's one less part for your sled that gets put down a little bit lower on the list, and that new beacon shovel probe hopefully is at the top to make sure you're dialed there and you got everything you need, when you show up to a course in the early season. And if you are thinking about taking a course, we mentioned it earlier, I can't stress enough how valuable it is to take a course with your riding buddies and your crew. So whoever you ride with, if you train and learn with them, you're going to perform as a way better team out there when you're actually just out riding. So it's super fun, to bring all your buddies and fill up half the class. You're going to get more out of it, and you're going to be a more dialed team afterwards.
Nope, that's awesome.
So yeah, basically avtraining.org is the ARI website. The mountainridinglab.com is where you can find us. Hopefully we'll have our schedule here. We were hoping to have it dialed in by Heydays. That date on the calendar still exists, so we're hoping early September we'll have everything mapped out and you guys can figure out what you want to take. And then obviously look up anybody else that's working with the Live Large University if they're closer to you.
Yep, absolutely. And that's a great segue because the ARI website that you just called out, there's a specific couple of tabs that I would ask people to look at specifically. One is the motorized section. There's avalanche training pages, and there's one specifically dedicated to motorized, which highlights all 4 of the providers, including the Mountain Riding Lab. So that's where they can find information on you guys. And then at the very bottom of that page is where there'll be a little bio or an outline of the Live Large University and what we're trying to accomplish here with the show, the John Ferrian Live Show, and the program. And there's actually a donation link. If maybe you don't have a desire for a shirt, or you want just your money to go dedicated directly to the fund and you don't want part of it to go to the shirt printing and all that, you can actually make a direct donation to ARI in that donation. And again, every donation directly to ARI is a tax-deductible donation. So you can donate, $100, $1,000 at the end of the year for your tax write-off, and completely tax-deductible. You can claim that. So fantastic opportunity there. And so now I want to talk about 831. So I launched this program, I think it was about the first or second week of May is when we kicked off the program of the Live Large University, the t-shirts, all the programs. And with Brian Lundsted's help, we kicked off originally he had put up for grabs 2 level 1 avalanche classes out of Colorado, out of Tyler's Backcountry Awareness. And so that is his contribution to the program early on. You guys have made a similar contribution, right, that we're going to be using here probably in the next phase. And with you guys' permission, I'd like to just kind of call that out right now, is as soon as we get into September through roughly December, I'd like to use your guys' level 1 avalanche class as an opportunity to do the giveaway then probably in early January. So you guys are nodding your head, so I'm assuming we're good.
Perfect.
There. Yeah, we'll get you guys some extra marketing and promotions around the program too. But the cool part is on August 31st, anybody who has ordered any piece of merchandise from the Live Large item order website that is in the comment section of this program, you go in there and order a shirt, a hat, or anything, you're eligible to win. Also donations. If you go to the ARI website, we'll track all the donations, and because the average price point of most of the products are about $25, every $25 you spend as a donation will give you an entry in also on those level 1 classes that we're giving away. And so on August 31st is the cutoff when all the donations and stuff will there, and then we'll take probably a couple of weeks to get it all organized and calculated. And again, we were hoping to do it at Heydays, but with Heydays, not happening live this year. We'll do it probably about mid-September. I'll just throw it out there, give or take around to September 15th. I'll be making announcements in the weeks leading up to that, and we'll give away the 2 classes from Brian Lundstedt for the Tyler's Backcountry Awareness. And at the same time, I'll be partnering with Erie to see how much money we've got saved up now to be able to issue some of those scholarships for both recreationalists and some of the pro riders, and we'll be making those announcements as well. So get your orders in, get your donations in before August 31st. If anybody has any questions on how to do that, if it's not clear, send me a private message. I'm happy to walk you through that. So that's, I think, the final 2 cents I have on the program, everything we talked about tonight. One last opportunity, any last minute comments that you maybe thought of while I was chatting there?
Major thanks for having us on the show, John.
Yeah.
I think what you're doing, involving all these other providers, I think it's very needed, and awesome job spearheading it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I mean, it's just a passion of love for me, and something I try to make very clear to everybody is that very intentionally, I don't make a dime off any of it. I guess what I build is relationships worth gold, is what I call it. Is you guys are my friends, Erie's my friends, like everybody in the industry is becoming my friends, and those partnerships and relationships, and knowing that I'm helping make a difference is really what drives and motivates me. So thank you for those kind words. I appreciate it. So, Matt, any final words?
Yeah, thanks again, John. I mean, we're just one big family here in the snowmobile world. I'm sure everybody that's involved in it knows that. And, we're just trying to take care of our own. We want everybody to have a good time and building these partnerships. And, I mean, I don't think anybody that has ever gone through one of our courses that I've met in any other snowmobile event, I haven't left with more friends than when I walked in there. So,
Amen.
I mean, that's really what keeps us going, too. And, we love teaching people to be safe. And, just one last thing is, if you come to an avalanche course with us, don't think that you're not going to burn a lot of gas. We like to ride, we like to have fun, and that's where you really learn. We get out there. So, if you show up in the morning, you better have your boots on, because we're going riding as soon as we can and burn some gas. So it really is a fun couple days. It's not just, sitting inside, reading a textbook or something. So
awesome. And on the John Ferrian, the Live Large merchandise website, again, the link there is to your guys' website. That's in the thing here too. And let's make sure that Will or Matt or both you guys feel free in the comments to drop you guys' website links, anything else that you want to add in there of how they can get a hold of you guys. And we'll go from there. But thank you, everybody who's watched. If you haven't already at this point in the show, I really would appreciate if you guys share this information out. And again, it's not about the publicity. It's not about anything like that. It literally is this message that we shared tonight is literally going to save somebody's life, because they're going to get inspired to take an avalanche class. They're going to get out there and they're going to be in a situation where they may rescue somebody down the trail that wasn't even in their riding group, but now they have the skills or the training to assist in that situation. And so literally every share here has the potential to inspire folks to get trained and to save lives. So thank you guys for doing that. God bless everybody, and live large, of course. Have a great night.
see ya.